Buenos dias a todos. Hello to everybody that is tuned in. Thanks so much for tuning in yet again for another edition of the weekly daily podcast. It is it is me. Is it I? It is Ben Dailey. That is myself. I always start off the podcast for some reason with a question to myself, a rhetorical question for nobody but myself. It's just me figuring out life and grammar in the moment. It's good to be here, though. I'm excited. It's been a good, solid last week. A lot of fun. A lot of things going on. I was just walking I have wooden floors. They're not wood. Vinyl, probably. I have what appear to be wooden floors that I am certain are cheap materials, not made of wood. But my feet, very cold. It's like 50 outside, which is much warmer than it's been. But my feet were really cold. Looked at my socks, holes in my socks. I knew it. This was a pair of socks that was in the corner of my closet, and I was like, how did that get separated from the other batch of socks? And sure enough, it's because they both have massive holes in them. And you know what? Probably not going to throw them away. I should throw them away. I'll forget, and I won't. But I hold on to clothes way too long. I'm trying to write new jokes about not having any sense of fashion. And I guess that kind of goes in with it, not the fashion, although I guess you could argue that is not fashionable at all. That is bad fashion to have clothes and articles of clothing with holes in them. Sorry, I'm picking my nose. I feel like I have a booger. And if you're watching the video and I do have a booger, sorry. Okay? It's like a ghost booger, you know? Or it feels like a booger's there, like when you get a vibration on your thigh, but your phone's not there. You're like, ooh, a ghost ring. Well, I feel like I got a ghost boogie in my nose. Double burp. Double hiccup inside of my throat. But yeah, my fashion has always been really bad. And I'm trying to write on just the fact that I like never change clothes. Most of my wardrobe is literally a decade. Oh, I have so many shirts from literally when I was in college, shorts from college. Maybe even high school. Some of the shorts I have legit might be from playing golf when I was 17, 18. Which, they're not even expensive shorts. I don't even understand how something like that could even stay together. Like the fabric is even still together 18 years later. But I digress. My fashion is bad. I don't care, though. That's the deal. I've never cared. My mom would pick my clothes out when I was in middle school, and ever since, I just dress like that. Except they're not hand-me-downs. They're just cheap clothes from Old Navy or similar stores like that. I've also never been into ironing. Could care less. I will go to an interview wrinkled up, and maybe that's the reason they don't hire me. Which, by the way, shouldn't be allowed. That's something that psychologists out there like to theorize. Well, if you don't have your wrinkles out of your cloth, then that indicates that your life is a mess and it's in shambles in other areas. Shut up. Shut up. You're dumb. Okay, there's a bunch of people out there with all these degrees and they've got the knowledge and theory and blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Okay? Look, I respect that there are people in those fields and they're very smart people, some of which are in those fields. But some people are just so pretentious. They just think they're better. And it's not like with math and, up until recently with science, most stuff was like, this is either right or wrong, or there's a right answer and a wrong answer. I guess math is a better example, just to stay out of the gray area with science. There's like a right and wrong answer, but then you can kind of spin it in whatever way, whatever side you're on. But with math, there's a right and wrong. So if somebody has a math degree and it knows calculus, they can be like, this is the answer. But for somebody to be like, well, in my upper graduate class book, okay, I was in class 602. The class name was I'm Smarter Than You, if you don't have a graduate degree. And we learned that, if you don't make your bed in the morning, then you're just like, it feels like people who are into astrology. That might as well be the same thing. It's like, are you reading tarot cards, or do you actually know what's going on? Okay? And I'm saying this as if somebody got to me this last week about, judging my life based off of a little minuscule part of my life, and they were like, this is what the rest of your life must look like. That's not what happened at all. That certainly happened in the past. That happens all the time. That just bothers me. That's the problem with this country, and a lot of people in this country, is people are judging people off of little to no information. Literally, people would just be like, oh, I found out that this person is from this geographic area in the United States. Boom. Judgment. You're, XYZ. You're a terrible person. You're this. You probably believe this. Where, you know what? We're all people, and we have very individual, nuanced view. Everybody's different. That's what's great about America. We can all be different and independent, and we can all still get along. But people don't want to get along. People want to judge you. Like I said, I don't know why I got on that tangent. Part of this podcast is to just talk words into the void for 45 minutes. And so any little tangent my brain goes on, I'm like, take it. Hit the gas and go for as long as you can. So that's what I did. People are judgmental, and I'm here to say I'm sick of it. All right. Anyways, in other news, guys, been reading that book, Pillars of the Earth. I usually talk about the book reading stuff later, but I'm gonna bring it up now. I've been reading. It's a very long book. It's close to 1,000 pages, and I am almost 700 pages in. Like I said before, it'll be the longest book I've ever read. It's been good. It's set in the 12th century, and it's about this guy, or it's about building cathedrals. It's like this journey in these kind of, is it called medieval? Is that the 12th century, medieval times? In England, they're building, I don't know how people built stuff back then. It's kind of wild. Obviously, you learn after trial and error, but it's pretty wild to be like, we're going to build this castle with a bunch of stories in it, and then we're going to live in it, and just sometimes it falls apart and a lot of people die, and then we start building it again and go, let's not do exactly what we did last time, because that fell and killed the entire kingdom. The entire ruling class was in this castle, and now the peasants are in charge. And the rich back then would not want that, But it's been very good. I got a couple hundred pages left. I'm gonna try to pound that out in the next week or so. But it's been enjoyable. But so many, when you're reading, 700 pages plus, whatever, long books, the amount of conflict resolution, like a lot of movies or books, it's like you have this conflict, and then it's resolved, and that's kind of like the end. I don't know why I did a hand motion if you're watching the video. You do a mountain, and then you go down the mountain. But this is literally like, oh my goodness, a roller coaster of conflicts, resolutions, rising of, we're, one step forward, two steps back, but times 50. So, it's kind of one of those where you're like, oh man, Give me a good ending. I want some redemption for these characters that I've been reading about for the last however many hours of my life. But looking forward to finishing that. Life back then would have been insane. Like, first off, you're just, in a lot of senses, if you don't have a job, or even if you have a job, you might be just struggling to feed yourself and your family. B, diseases, that's when they believed in witches. They don't know medicine. They literally, you get sick and they're like, there must be a witch. Where's the witch at? Because he got sick and we don't know why. So it must have been a spell that was cast. So that's, if your body literally is just not like in great shape, and even if it's in great shape, you can still get sick, obviously, but you gotta be like super strong and you still have a chance to die that way. And then if you travel places, you're walking just miles and miles and miles, and there's like outlaws who just pop out of the woods and they're just like, give me all your money or we're gonna kill you. And you have to like fight to the death or give your money over. And then there's people like in this book, William of Hamley, or Hamley, William of Earlcastler, William, Willie, Wet Willie, more like Silly Willie. All right, I'm just saying stupid references and rhymes that make no sense. But William, he's going around burning villages and doing crimes that I can't speak into this microphone because this is a clean podcast. He's doing very, very rude things. And, oh man, it's funny when you're reading a book and you legitimately get so angry at a character that you're like, take me to the 12th century so I can punch William in the face. But he's got like an army and swords, so he would kill me immediately before I even touched him. So that would be a funny movie. I found a time machine. I'm going to go back in time and I'm going to really punch some sense into some of these people that I've read about in history. And you take that time machine back and you're like, oh, Hitler, and then you just get like killed by the mob. You're like, I didn't fix anything. I just wanted to be the hero, but ended up dying. Now nobody has a time machine. That's probably happened. If we ever make a time machine, it's probably going to be some crazy person who's building it in their basement. Don't tell anybody about it. They're trying it out. It actually works. They go back into time, and then they just get killed like immediately, so they never come back. And then nobody knows it's a time machine. Nobody knows how to use it. So there's probably just like a bunch of time machines in like the basement of somebody's house. Isn't that what the movie Tron was? Kind of. Not quite. Very different, actually, now that I say it. But Tron, it was like a time machine, but not time machine. You just like went into digital world. It was like a dimension machine that took you into a place that plays cool music. I'll tell you that. I like that soundtrack. I was a fan. I like that movie too. It was pretty good. Who's the artist that did that? I'm blanking on their name. They wear the masks or the like futuristic helmets. Daft Punk. Got it. Usually my word collection, if I don't have it, it's gone. And then it bothers me and I stall on it for a while. And then for the next 7 minutes on the podcast, you guys are like, you guys shut it off. That's where I lose you. When they're like, Ben, this is the part where Ben doesn't know words and we don't want to sit through any more of it. Anyways, Daft Punk, Time Machine. Don't know how I got on that tangent, but reading that book, that's where it came from. Reading the book, it's been good. Once I finish that, I've got, I think, a George Carlin, and then I got a golf book. I got a handful of books. I think the history of stand-up as well. So I'm excited to get through some more books, get smarter. It is true. I wrote a joke a couple years ago that I don't almost never use anymore. But I should probably revisit it because it's very true, and it's about me starting to read, uh, which I started to read kind of for the first time in my adult life, consistently at least. Excuse me, I got the burps. I just ate lunch and then had some tea, and yeah, that's where burps come from. Food plus tea equals burps. That's a math and science formula. And that's a callback, ladies and gentlemen. That's a callback to the very beginning of this episode when I talked about math and science. But it's a callback to me referencing that. It doesn't make any sense, so I guess it's not really a callback. But man, I'm going on tangents, and I'm just forgetting what I'm saying. Reading. So I started reading consistently a couple years ago, and I wrote a joke about how I'm reading to try to get smarter, but I'm not getting any smarter because I keep seeing words I'm not familiar with, and I'm not even looking them up and like learning the words. My brain is just like, gross. Don't like that. That page stunk. Too many words my brain don't know. I need to be better at it though. I need to write stuff down, but I'm not. I'm just reading because you can read. You can read so much when you don't know plenty of words. Like there's probably, if I'm being honest, there's probably at least a word on every single page that I don't know. But it's not important enough because it'll be like, the person said this, and then it'll be in quotes, and it'll be like, he said, and then they'll use like an adverb, like he said aggressively, but it'll be a word that I don't know. I do know aggressively. But you can tell, from the quote itself, you're like, I understand that he was saying it in a specific way, like he's angry or he's sad or he's mad or whatever the case is. So context clues help there, but also you just don't, a lot of it isn't integral. Is that the word? Integral to the story. A lot of it isn't super important, necessary to understand the story. Like honestly, in order to read a book and not be able to understand the story, it would have to be like 25% or more maybe of the words you don't know. Like if you know 75% of the words, you can probably read and be like, I know what's going on for the most part. Which that's so many. I mean, that means on every page there would be like 25% of the words on a page would be like 100, maybe more words. That'd be hilarious. You're reading a book. You're like, yeah, I read this book. I didn't know about 50,000 of the words, but I read it. And you know what? That's what I did when I was reading books in Spanish. Back when I was studying a lot more when I lived in Central America. And I would read. I have a Kindle. And I would read. It was much easier to read on the Kindle if you don't know the words because you can just tap it or like go to the word and it gives you the definition. But I would do that in Spanish. And it was kind of hilarious to be like, I don't know a lot of these words, but I still understand the gist of this story. So it's pretty impressive how few words you need to know. Same thing when you're communicating. Like, people are saying stuff really quick, and you're like, if I understand the context of this conversation, aka if I'm like buying food and I'm at a restaurant and I know like, okay, this conversation is involving the food on the menu. Same as a story. If you read a story and you understand, hey, this is the context of this is it's the 12th century and they're building churches, cathedrals. Then you can really just hear a couple buzzwords and be like, I think I got it. Now, I wouldn't recommend reading that way. I mean, that's why you don't see 3-year-olds reading adult books, because that'd be pretty funny, actually. Supposedly, according to Cat Williams, when he was like 3 years old, he read like 100 books a year. So, maybe people are doing that. I did not do that. I didn't read an adult book until I was an adult, probably. And even then, struggled to read through stuff. But, oh man, it is true. The cliche stuff, the older you get, the more it really is like education and reading. It's so hack to say it, I know. But reading is so important. Like literally just getting your kids to read often growing up sets them on such a higher path. Not only like obviously it helps them with I think better understanding and being able to comprehend conversations that are going on in order to learn in the classroom, but also you're able to learn on your own, expand your vocabulary, your knowledge, your horizons. And I think it's just healthy in general, like a meditative activity that, especially in this day and age with phones and social media and all that stuff, like it feels like it's not a dying art. I don't think reading will ever die, but I feel like probably the numbers have got to be going down. Like Gen Z, are there a bunch of Gen Z people who have the phone as a kid, as a teenager before their brains developed, and they're just like, let me put this addictive thing that I don't understand why it's so addictive, but it's taking over my life and affecting my mood. Let me just put that down so I can read Harry Potter. I don't know. Are a lot of kids still on that? I hope, but it doesn't feel like that's the case. Give me the numbers. Tell me. Leave a comment. What does the science say on kids reading nowadays? You never know. Man, I'm yawning a lot, guys. I don't know why. I slept a decent amount. I did just eat. This is probably what happened. I just ate pasta, gluten-free pasta with broccoli and cheese. And I think that's going to be my last carb meal for a while. I think I'm going to try to go no carbs, which I try to do, and I have traditionally tried to do. I don't like, I feel like carbs make me a little brain foggy, which maybe that's why I'm all over the place on this podcast. But, yeah, it just makes me, you have the carb crash, and I don't like the way my body feels that much with carbs, but I've been struggling to get not even quick, just enough calories in me. Because I'm not eating fatty meats at the moment, so I'm eating like chicken. And dude, there's only so much chicken you can eat, you know what I'm saying? Like chickens, I love you. You're not my favorite. You're fine, okay? But you're like kind of whatever to me. And you can only eat so much chicken. Okay, it's not like cookies. You can't keep forcing it in. Your body's like, I'm done with the chicken. And then I'll have like vegetables. And I'm just not getting the calories that I need. So I went shopping yesterday. I bought some extra stuff. I'm going to have to start pounding just a bunch of stuff. Okay. Anyways, I ate the carbs about an hour ago, and I feel maybe like I'm crashing. It feels good not to carb crash. When you're not eating a lot of carbs, it's easy to forget. Like when you grow up and you're in school, you remember the head bobbing where you just like doze out after lunch? And it was so funny because I didn't understand. I don't think most kids understand like why you're doing that. Because like, oh, you just ate a bunch of carbs and now you're in a warm classroom just sitting still and your body's like shutting down. And my God, yawning so much. But you do that and you don't understand as a kid. And so you feel kind of like shameful. You're like, oh, I'm not able to concentrate. Is it something that's wrong with me? Am I misbehaving because blah, blah, blah. But then you get older and you're like, yeah, I mean, you just ate a sandwich and chips and some, a honey bun and chocolate milk. And then 6 minutes later, you're in calculus class and they're like, listen up, class, concentrate. Okay, what's wrong with you kids? You're like, I don't know, maybe the 75 grams of sugar in my belly. Maybe the 200 grams of carbs I just stuffed in my mouth in that 18-minute lunch that high school gives you. I don't know, maybe the fact that I'm almost a grown adult and I'm still drinking chocolate milk. Maybe something to do with that, But when you don't eat a lot of carbs, you don't experience that crash. And so bringing the carbs back and feeling some of that, you're like, oh, it takes me back to that time where you're like, man, that's not a good way to live life. I remember when I was like 25, because I was dieting very strictly with the Lyme disease from about 22 to 25, and even then when I was 25, I was still dieting in a very strict manner. But I started bringing back some of these options that I wasn't before, aka like gluten-free flours and options like that, to where now I would look at that and go, that's kind of probably cheating for my body at least. I'm not saying teach their own, eat what you want, drink what you want. For me and my body, the carbs aren't the best, so I was somewhat cheating, I guess, at that point. But I had periods where I would buy this gluten-free pancake mix, and so I'm sure it had to have sugar in it too, which was a no-no. But I would get that, and then I would get butter, and I'd get honey instead of like syrup, which I learned like 2 days ago that like most honey there's a loophole. So it says like pure honey, but it's literally just some honey mixed with like high fructose corn syrup. But they don't have to say that. And I was like, dude, I've been having a lot of honey. This is a revelation that really hurts me and to hear, But I used to as like a guilty pleasure buy this gluten-free pancake mix and the butter and the honey. And for a period, I have such a binge mentality that if I would buy it, you buy like a packet, and it was meant for you to use for a while, not for one sitting. And I wouldn't eat it all in one sitting, but as soon as it was opened and I made it, it's like, all right, had that for lunch, also making it for dinner, also making it for breakfast tomorrow to finish off the batch. Just gotta finish it up. So it would be in my head, and I remember being at working when I worked at the apartment complex, and I'd be like, oh, dude, 2 more hours before I get pancakes. And I would make these massive pancakes, and then I would eat them and sit on my couch, and I distinctly remember legitimately going into a carb coma. Like, your body just shuts down to where it literally passes out. Like, the insulin would spike so much, whatever the insulin does, to where your body, like, shuts down. And I would wake up because my body would, like, stop breathing. Not like in a I died way, but like in a sleep apnea type way, where you're like, oh, that's not you kind of wake yourself up because you're struggling to breathe in. And that's probably a pretty clear sign that things aren't good. That's a weird thing. Also, like reading the book about the 12th century and how people could just die so easily. Like, you had to be very careful. And it got me thinking about how it's so crazy how things have changed. Obviously, the improvement in medical technology and things like that, and medication, everything like that, is great. But also, like, in the 12th century, if you ate too much sugar and, like, you started to get diabetes or lose, like, your toes or feet or whatever, and the doctor's like, it wasn't a thing of like, hey, you need to cut out sugar, or, we can also give you this medication so you can keep living in this unhealthy way. It was like, hey, man, you got to stop doing what you're doing or you're dead. Like, that was for whether it was diabetes or, what other thing? Even like gout. I don't know if gout was around back then, but if you're eating too much and your foot hurts, like, then you just like can't work. and then you just like wither away as a productive person in society. Probably, maybe you get fired, you can't feed yourself, and then you just like die. So the mindset was just a very different thing. It was like, oh no, you just can't do that anymore. It wasn't, oh, but I like donuts though. So I'm going to keep doing it, and then I'll take medicine, and that's fine. And then maybe I lose my feet, but that's fine because now it's 2024. They'll just put like a plastic foot in there, and we'll be good to go. Anyways, this has been the most random podcast maybe ever. Really bounced around on a lot of topics. It's Monday. I'm doing this during my lunch break, and I will say this. I feel a lot more able to zing and zang when I do it like Saturday or Sunday morning, and maybe after a run or something, and I'm more clear-headed. I just, I've been working, and I ate a bunch of pasta, and then I was like, now's the perfect time to riff. Riff City, baby. The weekly Dailey. Let's talk about diabetes and cathedrals in the 12th century, and then, math and science and what honestly, I have to listen back. Not to the whole thing. God forbid. I would never. Thank you guys so much for listening. I can't do it. Can't listen to the whole thing again. But I'll just listen to snippets to then be like, to hear what I was talking about, so then I can write it in the description. Because I'll just talk this whole time, and then afterwards it's like, I don't know what I talked about. No clue. Gotta listen. So, wow. I feel, feels like I drank too much coffee today, which is weird because I haven't drank any coffee, and I'm also yawning, so I'm like low energy, but I'm like manically going topic to topic. So maybe, something might be wrong with me. I'll look into that later. But let's talk about a little bit of the comedy. What I've been doing comedy-wise. It's been an exciting last week. Genuinely have been, this last week has been the first time in a while where I have genuinely felt like good on stage and like in control and like delivering and getting back that confidence that I've talked about, where I felt pretty shaky, honestly, not just the last couple months, but the last year. I really felt like I was, and I think it was probably just a lot to do with the diet and mentally going downhill until last June, when I kind of hit rock bottom and really went strict diet. But then when I went on that strict diet, I was eating certain fatty foods, like healthy fatty foods, but certain foods that were giving me acid reflux. And then that opened another bag of worms and caused a bunch of other reasons to have difficulties on stage. So I feel like I'm getting toward the tail end of that, getting through that, and I'm starting to feel in the moment on stage. I'm starting to feel comfortable, and I'm starting to feel just like, man, I've got the set together where I'm feeling like very excited about the direction I'm going in and the reactions I'm getting, and like, I don't say killing very often, like murder. I'll joke around and be like, I murdered. Most of the time when people say they murdered, they probably did not murder. But I don't say that super often, but I feel like I have done very, very well in some recent shows that make me feel really good. It's brought some confidence back, so I'm excited for that. I did a handful of shows last week, handful of mics, working through some new material, which, by the way, here's the deal though. When I say I've been feeling really good and doing well, I feel like I'm leveling up with some jokes that I've got to now see like, hey, here's the ceiling for what your good jokes can get. So I'm like doing some new jokes, and altogether, like the ebb and flow of my 10, 15-minute set is just like my best jokes. And it feels that way finally, where I'm like, oh, I'm bringing everything I've got. And, you say that in the past, and like I look back at those jokes in the past and I go, those jokes stink, which is great. You level up, and, the better jokes you write, you start seeing a ceiling for where your jokes and laughs can be, the better jokes you have. But in doing that, a lot of those older jokes are just so far below the jokes I'm doing now. It's kind of at a point where I'm like, those jokes stink and I don't even want to do them anymore. And they're almost not worth doing anymore. Now, granted, if I'm doing a long set, then, you just got to fill the time some way. And they're not terrible jokes, but just as you get better and progress, it's like, that is just not good enough. My standards continually go up, as they should for anybody who's getting better and better and better. And at a certain point, you go, there's such distance between this good joke and then that joke I used to do that it's tough to do them anymore. And also, it's so I'll back up a second and I'll explain a little bit more about those jokes and the sets that I was doing over the weekend. But I, before that, did some open mics during the week. Did a show on Wednesday, Uncorked, at Infinite Monkey Theorem. Very fun show. Run by a local comic, Kelsey Rosen. Very fun show. It's a show every other week. Free show in Rhino area at a wine bar. And I've gone and hung out a couple times. It's always been a fun show. The crowd's into it. It was the first time I was performing on it, and it was great. I felt very good. I switched around my joke order a little bit. I've moved my closer to my opener now, and now I'm forcing myself to close on something different to force myself to get a new closer. And I felt great. I felt in the moment. I felt in control. And such a big part of it too is just being in the moment up there and showing the crowd that you're being genuine and that you're laughing at your jokes, or laughing with them about like, hey, this is a funny story or crazy thing that happened, rather than being on autopilot. Because it's a huge difference. I've been working very hard on writing jokes, but if you're just doing the jokes in autopilot versus doing the jokes with enthusiasm and charisma, it's night and day. So I feel like I did that Wednesday, felt good. And then Friday and Saturday, I did, man, I'm yawning every 3 seconds. Comics talk about laughs per second. How about yawns per second? You guys keeping count? Because I'm leading. I'm doing pretty good. I'm crushing the yawns per minute, whatever they're called. But did the Comedy Fort on Friday and Saturday. That's the comedy club in Fort Collins. It's my first weekend there as well. I was very excited. It's a very fun club. I've done the open mic there. I've done like a competition or two up there. They have a Thursday showcase. I've done that. But I've never done a weekend. So was able to do the weekend for the first time. Chloe Radcliffe, very funny comic out of New York City, was headlining. She was very cool, very nice. Just very down-to-earth person. I think she came from Minnesota. And yeah, just very down-to-earth, very funny. Just yucked it up with everybody the whole time. There was not that this happens super often, but sometimes, headliners can be a little more standoffish. And I don't even say that in like a judgmental way, because sometimes, they're working through maybe material or a set list when they're doing like 50 minutes. So a lot of times they just need or want alone time to kind of get all their ducks in a row to be prepared to go on stage. So I don't even say that in a judgmental way. But whenever there's a headliner that is like down to that's not doing that, and then it's just like somebody else in the green room who's yucking it up, having a good time, and there's no like hierarchy feeling where you're like, oh, this person, they want to do all the talking or they want to control the situation. It was none of that. So it was very cool. She was very fun hang, very funny on stage as well. But did 2 shows on Friday, 2 shows on Saturday. They were all sold out, and they were great, man. I felt so good. It's first time, maybe the first time ever, honestly, where I did a weekend somewhere. So like, 4 or 5 shows or whatever, multiple shows, and felt in control and like comfortable in all of them. And yeah, they all felt good. I'm going to get my tapes for those. I'm excited. I'll probably have, unless, there were technical issues with the recording, should have a new 10 or 12 minute tape to do. I did 12 minutes each show. And, yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, basically I moved my closer to my opener, and now I'm closing with something different. And in the middle, so I've got the opening portion, which is about 4 minutes, which is my old closer. And then my final story, which is the new closer, is close to 4 minutes. And then I have about 4 minutes in between of like shorter jokes. I mean, the stories have a lot of jokes in them, but I guess that middle 4 minutes that I'm talking about is just more traditional, kind of like 45 seconds and then moving to a different topic. So joke, joke, joke. And I mean, those are still good jokes, but I could still see, I would do my opener, which again, I keep saying this, my opener is my old closer. So it's like my best joke. And it's a story. So like when I do my final punchline with that story and it wraps up, most of the shows I was getting like a round of applause. I don't want to say like standing ovation, but like a sitting ovation. Like they were clapping. I mean, they would laugh and then they would clap, which is like the ultimate what's the word for it? I don't know. I feel like that's like the highest thing you can get in comedy when you know you're crushing is when you get a big laugh followed by that round of applause. And I'm not talking about like I made a political point and they're clapping in agreement. I'm talking about like you do something that's funny enough for them to laugh really hard and then clap for it. And I don't say that, I'm not trying to say that in a braggy way because this is new to me. This is brand new to me. This is a new level I feel like I've reached. Has not happened before. I'm not used to this. I'm 5 years in. And this used to be my closer. So I would close on it. I would get a big laugh and I go, "Thank you so much. My name's Ben Dailey." And then they clap me off stage. So I never, even when I was doing it as a closer, I never experienced clapping that I understood as like, hey, we're clapping for the joke versus, hey, we're clapping because you finished and you're leaving the stage. So to have it in the middle of my set now it's a cool experience, but also you gotta understand how to get out of that. You get like this clap and you can't just go into your next joke. You have to approach it a little bit differently. So that was fine. That was something that was cool to like navigate and learn how to navigate. But I would do that, get this big pop, and then my next 4 minutes, which were like the little jokey jokes, they were getting good laughs. But if I'm being totally honest, you go, those are not the same laughs as the story was getting. There's maybe 1 or 2 jokes in that middle portion that I'm talking about. They would get a big pop too. But once you hear these new heights, then that's your new bar. Okay? And everything below that is like not up to standard almost. So I feel like all my time, been writing jokes for like 5 years. I feel like I've collected a pretty large amount, like 45 plus minutes of jokes. And after this weekend, I was like, I have 12 minutes of good jokes, which has really rewired my brain in a good way. It's a level up moment, but I mean, I still plan on recording something, and I can still record, I think, an album or something with some of these older jokes, but now it's got me thinking like, oh man, I need all my jokes to be this level or better. So it feels very much like starting over. It's exciting. I'm got the notebook out and I'm like, all right, we got to really not burn through, but just write a bunch of stuff and try to keep leveling up. But that was a very fun weekend. I did the 2 shows on Friday, and in between that there was a Don't Tell comedy show in Fort Collins, a couple blocks away. So I ran in between shows to go do a spot there as well, and then back to the club. So did 3 shows on Friday night, 2 on Saturday night. Super, super fun, man. I mean, like I said, again, I don't say this to sound pretentious or be like I'm amazing. I've felt uh my self-confidence in comedy has been shaky the last few months. And I knew, I knew and thought, I guess I'll say I thought it had to do a lot with the diet, and I was like, I'm trending in the right direction. I'm exercising, I'm sleeping, I'm eating healthy. Just keep at it and you'll get back to, more energy, more mental clarity, more silliness, just feeling yourself. And I feel like I'm getting there, which has been awesome. Very, very excited about that. Excited about the future. I'm booked out uh, pretty much completely in February and March. I'm working on, I got some dates in April, working on setting up a tour in May, and need to set up some more stuff as well. I've got some thoughts as far as hitting some other spots, trying to, like I said in the past, get that headliner, get some headliner dates out there to be able to work on that muscle and figure out the longer stuff. Also handed out stickers for the first time in a while. I have stickers and I'm too like shy to do it. Or I wouldn't say shy, it's just more so like I haven't felt confident is one reason, I think. So like if you're not having a great set, then you're like, I'm not trying to give people stickers when they're like, yeah, you did fine or whatever. But also if I'm not headlining, I don't know, there's a bunch of things where I'm like, oh, should I be handing my stickers out? But at the club, I was like, you know what? I'm just giving them out for free. I'm not selling them. They have my Instagram handle on it. But I gave them out on the Saturday and got like 4 or 5 followers, which doesn't sound like a lot. But if I do that like every show and I'm doing like 150 shows a year, then you go, okay, that's 500 plus followers. And then from there, it just keeps going. But so I need to make that more of a habit. It was nice to be able to do that. And it was nice to have good shows and have people coming up and making it easier. They were coming up to me to say, great show, and then I just hand them a sticker. So I just need to be better at doing that, but I just need to be better as a comic, because if you do really well, then people want to come up and tell you, and then it just makes it natural and easy to give them a sticker or something like that. If you bomb all the time, then nobody wants your sticker. I can tell you that from experience. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thanks so much for listening. I know I was all over the place today. Hopefully there was something interesting in my manic episodes that happened over the last 45 minutes, but you tell me. Leave a comment. Was it good? Was it bad? Did you stop listening after 2 minutes? If you did, you're not hearing this. So anyways, thanks so much for listening. Hope you guys have a great week and January coming up on February, and I will see you again next week.